They decided they didn't want to use the stories. They decided they were going to go do their own thing, and so I decided, fine. But basically, I'm not going to try to. They weren't that keen to have me involved anyway, but at the same time I said, I'm not going to, if I get in there, I'm just going to cause trouble. Because they're not going to do what I want them to do, so, and I don't have the control to do that anymore, and all I would do is muck everything up. It was designed to be a film, like mythology, of this is what we stand for, you're probably scared, you don't know what's going to happen, and here's a little idea of some of the things you should pay attention to. Friendships, honesty, trust, and doing the right thing, living on the light side, avoiding the dark side.
You were planning on developing Star Wars Episode 7 before you sold Lucasfilm. Can you divulge any of the details you were working on?
The ones that I sold to Disney and everything, they came up to the decision that they didn't really want to do those, so they made up their own.
George Lucas has had enough. Disney's Star Wars is falling apart. George Lucas, the mastermind behind Star Wars, the man who revolutionized cinema, has finally had enough. Reports are coming in that after a private screening of the upcoming Rey movie, Lucas erupted in frustration. His once beloved galaxy far, far away is now unrecognizable, drowning in chaos under Disney's control. Since taking over Lucasfilm in 2012, Kathleen Kennedy has been at the wheel of Disney's Star Wars. And according to fans and insiders, she's also been the one driving it off a cliff. From endless writer shakeups to box office disasters, her leadership has turned the franchise into a shadow of its former self. Now, with the Rey movie trapped in development hell and yet another new writer brought on board, it looks like even George Lucas can't stay silent anymore. What really went down in that screening room? Why has Star Wars fallen so far from its original glory? And the biggest question of all, can the franchise ever recover with Kathleen Kennedy still calling the shots? Let's dive in.
What happens now, and it happens in streaming probably more than features, but features the same thing. Nobody knows what to do. The stories they're telling are just old movies. People have a tendency to overdo it. They abuse it. Everybody went out and made spaceship movies, and they were all horrible, and they all lost tons of money. Whenever there's a new tool, everybody goes crazy and they forget the fact that there's actually a story, and that's the point. Let's not do it. You gotta remember, Star Wars came from nowhere. Now, if you do anything that's not a sequel, or not a TV series, or it doesn't look like one, they won't do it. They say, we want something that
So that's the downside of Star Wars.
That's the downside of Star Wars. And it really shows an enormous lack of imagination.
George Lucas erupts over Rey movie disaster. Here's why. If you're wondering why George Lucas lost it after watching the Rey movie screening, just take a look at the absolute mess this film has become. What was supposed to be a fresh new chapter in Star Wars has instead spiraled into a chaotic nightmare, a mix of failed leadership, endless rewrites, and creative clashes. It's the kind of disaster that would frustrate any creator, let alone the man who built this galaxy from the ground up. When New Jedi Order was announced at Star Wars Celebration in London 2023, Disney banked on nostalgia, bringing back Daisy Ridley as Rey. But instead of excitement, the announcement was met with skepticism. Fans still hadn't forgotten how the Rise of Skywalker revealed Rey as a Palpatine, a twist that felt like a desperate attempt to fix The Last Jedi's backlash. Now, Disney is doubling down on Rey, making her the leader of a new Jedi Order, 15 years after the sequel trilogy. But instead of moving forward, it feels like they're just digging the franchise into an even deeper hole. Behind-the-scenes chaos. A disaster in the making, the real chaos? It's all happening behind the scenes. The Rey movie has turned into a revolving door of writers, with each one either fired or walking away due to creative differences, a phrase that's basically become Kathleen Kennedy's signature move at Lucasfilm. And that's likely what pushed George Lucas to his breaking point. It all started with Damon Lindelof, Watchmen, Lost, and Justin Britt Gibson. Lindelof, known for his complex storytelling, initially gave fans a glimmer of hope. But his time on the project was short-lived. After getting pushed out, Lindelof didn't hold back. He even joked that joining the writer's strike was more enjoyable than working on Star Wars, a clear shot at the chaos running rampant in Lucasfilm. And this is just the beginning. Why is Disney struggling so hard to keep this movie together? Is there any way to save Star Wars under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership? And most importantly, is George Lucas finally ready to fight for the franchise he created? Let's break it all down. Lucasfilm's chaotic downfall. Why every writer is fleeing the Rey movie. The Rey movie isn't just struggling, it's drowning in a restrictive, chaotic environment under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership. If a writer of Damon Lindelof's caliber, a mind behind Watchmen and Lost, couldn't survive Lucasfilm's demands, then the problems run way deeper than just a few bad scripts. Next up, Stephen Knight, the genius behind Peaky Blinders, known for his gritty, character-driven narratives. Fans had a glimmer of hope. Maybe he could bring some real depth to Star Wars. But just like Lindelof, he didn't last. By October 2024, Knight was out, yet another victim of Lucasfilm's inability to maintain a consistent creative vision. Then came Simon Kinberg, an experienced writer with Star Wars Rebels ties and blockbuster success from X-Men. Days of Future. Past. Rumors swirled that he was working closely with Kathleen Kennedy. But just like his predecessors, his involvement quietly faded away. By this point, the writing was on the wall. This project was sinking fast. Last-ditch effort or another disaster. Desperate to salvage the movie, Lucasfilm brought in George Nolfi, known for Ocean's 12, The Bourne Ultimatum, and The Adjustment. Bureau. An accomplished writer, sure, but his hiring raises serious concerns. Nolfi has openly stated that he plans to explore political themes in the movie, much like the subtle commentary Lucas included in the original trilogy. But under Kennedy's leadership, fans aren't buying it. Star Wars has already been heavily criticized for pushing modern political agendas at the expense of storytelling, and Nolfi's involvement suggests the movie is heading even further in that direction. Instead of focusing on a compelling, character-driven narrative, it's looking more and more like another lecture disguised as a film. The biggest frustration? Wasted talent. What's truly infuriating is that each of these writers, Lindelof, Knight, Kinberg, and now Nolfi, brought something unique to the table. Yet none of them could survive the chaotic, ever-changing creative environment at Lucasfilm. Constant rewrites, shifting direction, no clear vision. It's no surprise that George Lucas finally lost his patience, watching his beloved franchise crumble under this dysfunction. Can Star Wars be saved, or is Lucasfilm too far gone under Kathleen Kennedy? Let's break it down. Lucas loses it. The What the F*** Rey movie is doomed. The Rey movie isn't just struggling, it's completely stuck in limbo. With no clear vision guiding it forward, the film has become a directionless mess. And for George Lucas, a man who built Star Wars on a solid, cohesive story, watching this level of dysfunction must have been unbearable. But it's not just the writing chaos that likely set Lucas off. The director choice has sparked just as much controversy. An unproven director for a massive franchise? Lucasfilm handed the reins of this blockbuster to Charmaine Obaid-Chinoy, an award-winning documentary filmmaker. But here's the issue. This is her first ever narrative feature.